Hey guys, welcome to today's I Factor conversation. And listen, we are over the moon excited about the I Factor. If you don't know, I'm Van Moody, author of The People Factor and the new book called The I Factor. And I'm so excited for you to be a part of this conversation and encourage you to really go out and pick up the book or pre-order the book. Just make sure you get it, because it doesn't matter where you are in life on your journey. It doesn't matter your profession, whether you're a stay-at-home mom, whether you're a professional athlete, whether you're an attorney or an activist. What you're called to do, you will only be able to do to the degree that your I factor is healthy. And so we've been having these I factor conversations with a variety of people. And in this video series, we're allowing you to listen in on some of the conversation. And I'm excited about today's conversation because we're going to explore the topic really of the next generation. There is so much conversation in America, really around the world, about how to bridge the gap between this current generation and the one that is coming behind us. There are a lot of individuals that have put forth extensive research about millennials and the next generation coming behind them. And we know that this generation is different. We know that they face challenges unlike any other generation has faced. But we also know, regardless of the research, regardless of the differences, we do know this, that this next generation will be the leaders of our communities and our country and our world tomorrow. And so I'm excited to have this conversation because we're going to dig into some of the challenges that this next generation faces. And there are lots of people that have put forth a ton of info about what those challenges are. But let's talk to really the next generation leader. And so I'm happy to have Maya Moore with me. And we're going to have that conversation today. Maya is a phenomenal young woman. She is on her way to finishing law school, and so she is in the final stretches of finishing law school here in Birmingham at Samford. She's a graduate of the University of Alabama. She's already got the firm that she's going to work for, and so she is an overachiever. She is a leader par excellence. And so, Maya, thanks, first of all, for taking time out of law school and getting ready to take the bar to spend some time with us and have this I Factor conversation. I'm excited about your future, but I'm also excited about the next generation. And I think that you represent this next generation in a great way. So I want to have some conversations about it, because what I do know is that I Factor challenges are not just limited to adults. The thing about the I Factor is that everyone has it. And I think everyone has to deal with it to make sure that their I Factor is healthy so that they can live the best life that God desires for them. So your college career is almost over. You did exceedingly well at Alabama. And, I mean, you are like kicking butt and taking names in law school, and so excited about that. But if you can hold on to your student hat for just a few moments, I want to talk about the pressures that come with being young and being up next. You know, trying to carve out your place in society and everything that comes with that. There's a ton of pressure. You know, you got to make the right connections. You've got to maintain great grades. You've got to join the right sorority or the right fraternity. You've got to network with the right people. You've got to be in the right clubs. There's so many moves almost that you are forced or challenged or pressured to take so that you could have the successful future that not only you want for yourself, but your parents want, and everybody that's kind of cheering you on that they want. And I know that's pressureful. I know that inherently comes with a lot of pressures. But I don't want to assume that that's the only big pressure for this next generation. What do you think, just as you look back over, you know, the recent years in college and in law school, what do you think are some of the most significant pressures? And maybe there's one, maybe it's two, that this next generation is facing, and then I want to talk about why.
Okay. First off, I want to say thank you for having me, and I really am glad that I have the opportunity to talk about this topic. I think as a millennial, I think a lot of the pressures that we have are being misunderstood and combined with trying to achieve success. And I think that we're so ambitious and bold because a lot of the times we're perceived as being lazy, entitled, disrespectful, and I think a lot of the times we want to live up to others' dreams of us, and that we try to work so hard looking for the next opportunities to prove to others that that's not who we are.
That's really good. So it's a part of the expectation that infuses your behavior.
Right.
Yeah, that's very fascinating because you're right. I've heard that indictment. It's the next generation. They don't have work ethic, and my generation, we had to scrap for everything we got, and they just want everything handed to them. But then the bold moves of this younger generation are baffling to some people, and so you
Right.
believe that this is kind of the millennial way to cope with the expectations and to press forward.
I think so. I think you see an entrepreneur wave with the new millennials. I think we want ownership. I think that our generation knows how to use social media to leverage opportunity. And I think that because of that, we're shaping the IT world. We're shaping how people operate, how businesses operate. Now you see Starbucks, you can order your food on an app and then go pick it up. You don't have to wait in this day and age. So I think that a lot of the times we're just trying to, that boldness about us, and that the ambition and the drive that we have, a lot of the times because we're infused, as the word you use, but because we're infused by that, I think a lot of the times it can be misperceived as being entitled, like the whole thing that you don't have to wait. Some people feel like can be turned to entitlement.
I want to challenge you to talk about the other side of being driven. There's a difference between being driven and being led. And I don't personally think that there's anything wrong with the ambition, the go-get-it kind of emphasis. But so often we can be so focused on what we want to accomplish externally that we neglect the importance of being whole internally. One of the keys that I talk about in the I Factor is the secret of sustained success. Because an unhealthy I Factor can reveal itself in multiple ways. One of the ways is that it will hinder people from accomplishing their dream or getting to a level of success that they desire. Another way that an unhealthy I Factor will manifest itself is that you have people who can get to that place or accomplish that thing, but they won't be able to maintain it. Irving Berlin once said that the challenge with success is that you got to do the work to keep on being successful. And that takes not just an external drive, but it also takes really the knowledge that internally I've got to be whole. Because wherever I go, there I am. Talk about that for a little bit. You think that's being missed on the millennials? What are your thoughts around that?
Absolutely. I do believe that it's a double-edged sword, in that a lot of the times we can be so ingrained into being hardworking that we get a sense of pride or this sense of self-reliance, and we don't ask for help. And I think that's why small groups are so powerful. And I just feel like if we learn how to, deal with issues that we may have and not be so ingrained into working, accomplishing, and achieving success, then a lot of the times we'll be able to maintain ourselves during that level of success that we're able to reach.
That's really good. So here's a question. Do you think that it's difficult for this next generation to deal with what happens when they fail to reach those expectations?
I do. I think we have a coping issue, and I think that's back to this self-reliance that we feel like we have to have, that we don't know how to ask for help. So when we do go through things, we're a lot of the times going through them alone. Because back to the first issue, I feel like we're misunderstood. So a lot of the times we don't even feel like we can go to people and explain to them what we're dealing with, or the issues that we may be facing. So.
And that's a big I Factor challenge, because some of the greatest things that God will do in helping you to heal and just making it to the next step, He will do through people. Which is why a lot of people remember the people factor, but the people factor and the I Factor kind of go together.
Right.
I've first got to be healthy from the inside out, but then I've also got to be able to do relationships with others well. And the answer is not just to disconnect. In light of that, you're getting ready to graduate law school, getting ready to start an incredible career as a just phenomenal attorney. What questions, one or two, if you were sitting here with the most famous attorney, I'm not a famous attorney, but I've done okay. But what do you think is a pressing question that the next generation is really asking, whether it's verbally or non-verbally, about what it takes to not only accomplish success, but to maintain it? Or it may just be your question. What do you perceive that question to be?
For me, I think I would ask, how did you get there? What did you do specifically? Like, give me a layout. What are the things
Sure.
that I need to work towards to get to where you are? And I think another question would be, how did you balance it all? Because I think a lot of the times we can be so focused on in one area that we lose sight or we lack in the other area.
Absolutely.
So it's something that's called work-life balance. And that's
Yep.
my main, I
Yep.
want to be able to have that work-life balance. And I think a lot of
Yep.
people may agree with me there.
Well, let's talk about it. The first thing is you always want to start with the end in mind. I often tell people that if you don't have any destination in mind, you will be wandering around aimlessly for most of your life. When you start with the end in mind, when you think about where you want to be and where you ultimately feel called, then you back up, and every decision and every opportunity is measured and weighed based on that destination. If it doesn't line up, then that's a filter through which you can say that opportunity is not for me. That may be great, it may be enticing, but that is not in line. So there's a sense of congruence
Right.
that you've got to have. Every person, including myself and anybody else that I've known over the years that have done anything substantial, they had a singular focus. There's a great book that deals with this principle, and it's called Rhinoceros Success. The reason that the rhinoceros is such a powerful animal is because it picks its target and it charges head on straight towards that. The danger is that you want to do everything well, but you can't do everything well. You can only do one thing well. And then when you do that one thing well, you can move on to the next thing. And so you want to be singular in your focus, and every decision, every opportunity, every enticing thing in front of you has to be filtered through that singular focus. That's to answer the first question.
Okay.
The second question about work-life balance is that you also have to remember, and there's a tension. So one part of the tension is, I know where I'm going. I want to be singular in my focus so that I can get there. The other tension, though, is that it's not just about the destination, it's the journey. So you want to be intentional to lift your head up and smell the roses, because what God is most concerned about is not where you're going. He's most concerned about who you're becoming on the way. And that's something that a lot of people don't talk about, which is why the I factor is so important. Because you can have a singular focus, your life can be congruent and connected to what you're ultimately trying to accomplish, and you can skip over who God is trying to form and shape you
Right.
into being. And you can get there, but it won't really be what it's supposed to be if the internal work hasn't been done along the way. And that's a part of that work-life balance. You want to be intentional to understand that all work and no play, will make Maya a dull girl. And so you want to be strategic in how you plan it. And here's the thing about balance. You have to plan it. You have to be intentional about it, because nobody else is going to give it to you. The world will take and take and take, and people will take and take and take. And the only way that you will have this balance is you have to establish it. In the people factor, I talk about setting up healthy boundaries so that you can be whole in the midst of toxic people. You also have to set up healthy boundaries so that you can have balance. And it's an age-old principle that comes directly from the Bible. We know that God created the world in 6 days, and on the seventh day he rested.
Right.
And God, all through the Old Testament, drives home the importance of Sabbath. Why is Sabbath so important? Because you need time to rest. I often say that recreation and recreation is spelled the same way on purpose. So in order for you to be refreshed and ready for the next thing, you've got to have those intentional seasons of recreation and rest so that you can stay fresh. Ecclesiastes talks about, if the axe is not sharpened, it takes twice as long to cut down the tree. So you want to be intentional about it. And there's a rhythm that you have to develop, meaning My plan may not necessarily work for you. Your parents' plan or your friend's plan may not necessarily be your plan. The point is, create a plan.
Right.
But create a plan around the rhythm of your life. One of my mentors once said that you've got to learn to connect with God based on the rhythm with which he moves in your life, or you got to have a rhythm to your life. What is your rhythm? You know, when do you know that you need rest? When do you know that you can go for several weeks or several months and you get to that period where you're brain dead and you don't want to read anything else? What is that? You gotta discover what that is, and then build your time of rest and recreation and all of that around that rhythm, but be intentional to do it. Because it's not just the destination, it's the journey. There are so many people that are focused only on the destination, and they got there and they're miserable. I know so many individuals who are uber successful, but they get to the end of their life and they're filled with regret.
Right.
Because it was so destination, I call it destination disease. There are so many people who put their life on hold because they're waiting on the next thing. When I get here, then I'll live. Or when I get married, or when I make partner, or when I get to 7 figures, then I'll do X, Y, and Z. And they look up and their whole life has passed them by because they put everything off to this next thing. And what happens is the carrot's always being moved. Goals are anticlimactic. And they're anticlimactic for a reason. You know, you're getting ready to finish law school, so there'll be the car that you wanted to get. But you'll get the car and you'll realize, this is nice.
Right.
But that'll go away really quickly because goals are anticlimactic. What you really got to learn to appreciate is the journey to get there. That's how you have the balance. Enjoy it. You only get one life, and so live it. Have fun. This is why, once again, it's about the I factor. Let me ask you this. Aspiring attorney, you've accomplished a lot at a young age. How old are you?
I'm 24.
All right, 24. How did you handle the internal challenges? Did you just stuff them down, or did you recognize that, you know what? I got to deal with this.
No, I would say that I just had to stay focused and get rid of the distractions. First, I had to come to terms with where am I spending most of my time? Is it healthy? Is it unhealthy? Whether it's an unhealthy relationship, am I spending too much time watching TV to the point where I can't get my work done? I just had to be focused, get rid of the distractions. But I think the easiest segue into being able to do that for me was being surrounded by individuals that were doing the same things that I was doing. So whether it was law school, divinity school, grad school, pharmacy school, whatever it was, you know, I had to learn how to find my social in that so that I didn't feel pressure to go out or, you know, and doing other things. So for instance, like we would go to Starbucks, get treats, and study. So when you have other people around you doing the same things, it makes it easier for you to stay on track and accomplish what you're trying to accomplish.
But to get there, you had to first get to know who you are.
Right.
To determine which groups identify and bear witness with who you are at your core.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the peeling of the onion and getting to the core of who you are determines everything. That's the only compass you have to designate which groups, which environments, which shows, which settings are healthy and conducive to that destination and which ones are not.
Right.
Excellent. I'll give you one question. Which question would you like to add as we close, or a wrapping up thought about the I factor, about success, about millennials? You tell me. Which question?
I would say just I guess advice rather than question for millennials. I would just say to listen. A lot of the times, you know, even though we may feel understood, a lot of these things our parents went through, the same things. It may be a little bit different, but a lot of the issues, you know, they've went through, and they can give us wisdom. So I think a lot of the times if we take a moment to really listen, it'll keep us from a lot of the headaches and a lot of the issues. And I guess it's just like you don't have to touch the stove to know that it's hot. If someone is
Somebody's
telling you
already told you it's hot.
that it's hot. So that would be my last little piece of advice.
That's good stuff. Well, millennials, you heard it from a sister in arms. Listen, focus on your I factor. Allow it to guide you to the right destinations that are in line with what you ultimately are believing God for and working towards. Maya, thanks for the conversation. Thanks for hanging out with me. And thank you for watching, for being a part of this I Factor conversation. We look forward to seeing you next time. Don't forget, if you haven't pre-ordered or purchased the I Factor already, make sure that you do it. I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that it is a game changer and is going to add significant value not only to your life, but to every person who you're connected to. And it's going to help you take the next step towards the life that you desire, but also that God has for you. So God bless you guys. See you next time.